Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Wendy, and you have arrived at the Awakened Mother podcast, which are weekly, uncensored dialogues, raw, real, gritty, authentic dialogues with spiritual teachers, visionaries, leaders, just like you and me, everyday folk that are just navigating these times. And the Awakened Mother podcast is here to inspire, uplift, and inform you on a whole multitude of topics that you deal with every day. So today, as we've just had the solstice, which is a time, as I was saying before we started recording, the solstice is the shortest day of the year and the longest night, which precedes this winter, this womb of going inside to this fertile place. Some people call it the darkness. But when you think about where does a baby gestate, it's in the womb, it's in the amniotic fluids, in the water. And as Reverend Joanne taught me so many years ago about the lotus grows, upside down in the mud. So we've entered this really fertile period of solstice so that we can enter into the womb of our consciousness and bring forth light, bring forth seeds that will fruit in the spring. And Lord knows we are in one of the most incredible times in history. I've had so many clients say to me, they feel like they're in a time of war. Ooh. All of that being said, I am just so happy and thrilled and delighted to be sharing with you Reverend Joanne Coleman. So a little bit of history. Reverend Joanne Coleman is a staff minister at the Agape International Spiritual Center, where I have been a member for 21 years, and I'm also an Agape licensed spiritual therapist and a minister. And I met Reverend Joanne when she began teaching a class about the mystical teachings of Yeshua. As I was sharing, Yeshua is the Aramaic pronunciation of Jesus. And I couldn't believe this woman. She's a biblical scholar, having studied with Rocco Errico, the lineage being passed on, and the words and the meaning that she was giving to what we read in the Bible just touched my heart and opened my mind in such an expansive way. So when I imagined the Awakened Mother podcast, because it's for moms, it's for women who mother, it's for the honoring and the grounding, the rooting of the divine mother. I couldn't imagine not having Reverend Joanne speak about, Yeshua and the mystical meaning of Christmas, since we're rapidly moving into Christmas. So mystic, teacher, author, biblical scholar, Agape staff minister, please join me in welcoming Reverend Joanne Coleman to the stage. Reverend Joanne, you are muted.
Did it sneak and muted? I pushed something. Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Great.
I'm on now. Okay, let me get my camera steady. Usually I'm holding the thing, but I didn't realize I was wiggling around. So I got a little steady space here for us. Good morning, everyone. It is such an honor to be here. It is wonderful. When Wendy asked me, my heart just went into the quickening or a fluttering, which for me, and maybe many women, is my yes. It's good to know in our bodies when our body is at yes and when our body's at no. Our bodies hardly ever do maybe. We don't have a maybe. We got a yes, we'll do it. No, thank you. Well, this is so exciting to be here. I'm a flutter, a twitter, and ready to go. One of the things that I like to do that is part of the tradition I am in the lineage of George M. Lamsa, Rocco A. Errico, is that George M. Lamsa brought something to the United States, to the world, that many people don't know he's the pioneer of, which was the idea that Jesus actually spoke Aramaic. And with that, it was his natural native tongue as well, with a dialect that is an accent similar to the accent that Jesus had when he spoke Aramaic. And so I'm going to begin with the Lord's Prayer, the Our Father, if you would, in the language of Aramaic, the language the first listeners heard Jesus, Ishawa. Oh, and if we were really going to say his name like how it would be said today in modern times, he is named after Joshua, a spiritual hero in his culture. Joshua inherited the lineage of Moses and took the people from the wilderness all the way to Jerusalem. He's named after that person who took the people all the way to Jerusalem. And in Greek, it comes out like Jesus. But if we were to hear what it would sound like today in English, directly from Aramaic, it's Joshua. It's Joshua. So here's that prayer. Aun Dwashmeya Nith Kadash Shmach Te Mau Kuthach Nekwe Sivyanach Ikana Dwashmeya up Bar A Haulan Lachma Disunkana Yaumana Wash Woklan Chayobain Ikana Tap Hanan Shawakan Ahayawain Ula Tatlan El Mishona Ella Pasan Min Bisha Mito Delachi Maukutha Uchaila Utish Bokta La Alam. Amin. Amen. Wow. The thing I love about the Semitic, the Aramaic approach to the Bible, to which I have given my life, is that by putting the whole book back into its natural culture, we can glean more meaning. We can understand the situation into which Jesus was speaking and teaching. We get a deeper transmission when we can go from Aramaic to English, or as we understand what was actually occurring and to what Jesus is speaking. His prayer was so profound that the culture of his day, they could remember it. It was stunning and still is directly from English, Aramaic into English. But I digress. Let's just go for, oh my goodness. Miriam, up in Nazareth, a town inside of the county Galilee, country Galilee, a small town, not backwater, but not really large. She has a dream. She might be about 13 to 15 years old. And she dreams of an angel, a malacha, a messenger. And this messenger, this angel, not like the Babylonian angels we have today with big wings. These are God's messengers, and they can appear and unappear. And it says that this angel, this malacha, comes to Mary, and we get to know that this is all happening in the mind, heart of Miriam. All young women wanted to have angels make announcements to them about their coming pregnancies, about who their child would be. And Miriam, she's not different. Mary's not different. Shoot, her whole country is under siege and under Roman rule. And while the Romans are tolerant of Judaism as it was practiced then, as it was understood then, they're still a little cautious about Jews because Jewish people have a teaching that has someone about to arrive called the Messiah, the Mashiach, the Mashiach, the Mashiach, the Messiah. And this word is derived from the word oil or olive oil. And in the time of Jesus, there's no Bible you're going to swear your oath on, your life oath on. No. They poured oil on the top of your head. Maybe that's where we get the word Christ, to be anointed. The Messiah would be oiled into office. And in the culture of Jesus, there was a great hope, especially under Roman rule, that this Messiah would be arriving any day now. Someone was going to give birth to the oiled one. Yeshua, the Messiah. Joshua, the greasy, the oiled one, the slippery one, the buttered one. And she's not different from the young women in her culture. She dreams of an angel whose name is Gabriel, which translates as a man of God. Certainly he is. God has caused him to be a messenger and appeared in the consciousness, in the awareness of Miriam. She's having an appearance, an ethically, a revelation. And the angel reveals that she's going to have a baby. Not only that, but she's going to have a baby boy. And this baby boy is going to be the one all of her people are hoping for. Now, this dream may have happened more than once to many young girls, but we only have this recording of this young woman, that she is hearing a message from God's messenger that she's going to have a baby boy, and he is going to make the difference in the lives of her people. And he's going to be named Joshua, because he's going to take the people all the way to spiritual freedom and political freedom. She's just so excited, but she wants to, what do you mean she has a chit chat with the angel. What do you mean? Because in her culture, they're not afraid to talk to God or talk back to God or disagree. They are in great rapport with the presence of God. And she says, but I don't know any man. I haven't had intercourse. That word "no," yada, is a word that indicates comprehension, apprehension. It indicates realization. And it also means intimacy. She hasn't had intimacy. And while she may be betrothed to Joseph, they haven't had intercourse yet. That's a whole other thing, the sexual lives of young women in the Bible. We can do that in another course. Nonetheless, she has this dream, and this dream comes true. They know, because she's married to Joseph, he also has a dream. So the man of God goes over there and lets him know that, wow, Mary's pregnant, and that they need to go to, they're going to go to Bethlehem, because that's the place of the nativity, where ought the Messiah be born. Or can he really be from a small town called Barstow? Victorville? But Bethlehem, the house Bethlehem, the house of bread, spiritual nourishment and spiritual teaching, that kind of bread. And so they begin to make their way to Bethlehem from Nazareth. This is no easy journey. They're not quite on a wagon train. I hope you saw those kinds of Western movies growing up or have seen them. And there's a wagon train. And if Joseph and Miriam are going to go to Bethlehem, they're very likely not going to just be her on a burro, a donkey, and him walking beside it. That is a dangerous journey. It's over 70 miles, and most of it they're going to be walking. Isn't that great to know that it's about 70 miles? Where is 70 miles from where you live? Imagine walking that with your mule, with your provisions, with your bread, with your wineskins, just the few things that you need, and Joseph with the coins he's going to need to pay for all the services. Scholars think that they traveled in a small caravan because there were hostile territories that Mary and Joseph would have had to navigate. And it's not likely they would have navigated those things, just the two of them all by themselves. They were with other people as they go on their way. 70 miles. Okay, walking. The fastest it could have ever gone is 4 days. More like 10. Because you can't go fast because it says Miriam is in the last part of her pregnancy. So she's probably not that amenable. She probably can't go, but so fast. So she and Joseph make their way to Bethlehem on a 10-day journey. Just amazing. And they would have eaten bread in the morning, bread in the afternoon, and bread in the evening, sometimes with a little dried fish, and sometimes moistened with both water and with wine. I think that this part is great. We can know this kind of thing through the scholarship, through anthropology. We can find out what were Jesus's, what was Yeshua's, what were his sandals actually made of? What kind of garments were they wearing? What would have been the fashion, if you would, for a moderately incomed couple on their way to Bethlehem? They get all the way to Bethlehem, and it's turning out that Bethlehem is full, according to the scriptures. It's full because they're doing, not only are they doing tax time, but they're also doing a head count, a census. The Romans want to know who's who and what's what. And it has filled the city. So all the Holiday Inns and the Best Westerns are totally full. And the place that they find is a shopkeeper, an inn, who has in one side of the house. The regular inn is full. All those beds are taken and paid for. And the other place that gets offered is a barn / a cave. These caves were natural and normal and not at all seen as way lesser than to get to stay there. They were clean, they were dry. And this is offered to Joseph and Miriam, that they can be in the barn, be in the cave. Ooh, and didn't Reverend Wendy just talk about that solstice is about entering the cave, so that something mystical and magical about you can occur. It's away from heavy traffic. It's away from popularity. It's there. And I want you to know that she is there, but she, I hope you don't mind my grandmother's vernacular, she ain't by herself. No pregnant woman is going to come to the inn and be offered the cave all by herself. not only that, it's got to be the kind of cave where a Jewish family could stay. Just wouldn't know any old kind of thing. And after they get a little bit situated, they have to send for the Jewish midwife. And the Jewish midwife has to make her and her apprentice have to, with her basket of supplies, would have to make their way through the crowd to get to this particular inn and to this particular section called the cave. This cave would have been cleaned up. It's not stinky and smelly. They have the innkeeper, realizing Mary's in that way, would have gone in there, had his hired hands go in there and make sure there was fresh hay in the little manger, the trough out of which the animals would have eaten. He would have put the animals over in a more contained space so that they wouldn't be all over the place. All the feces would have been picked up. It was as fresh and as clean as it could have been. Not only that, but the innkeeper, of course, he has a wife, and the innkeeper's wife would have really been running things. We don't see and hear about the people I'm going to tell you about that I think attended the birth of Joshua, because everybody who been reading this scroll, hearing about this, they would have already been able to fill in a birth scene where we Westerners can't fill in the birth scene because we have Western hospitals where we just don't know. We could not have suspected that there would have to be a Jewish midwife with her supplies and the innkeeper's wife, right? It might not have crossed our minds that the barn is cleaned up and that you're not going to be stepping in something because you're in there. It is clean as it can be. And the innkeeper's wife would have been also bringing blankets and cloths, and the housekeeper, let me see, what am I going to say? Like the cook that would have been cooking for the inn, for the patrons of the inn, she would have been on board, and she would have started a small fire, got the pots on, because we're going to need plenty of water for this birth. Births use a lot of water. And there would have been some way that they would have had to gather the pots and containers so that there would be plenty of water, plenty of hot water. And the cook would have brought her own version of towels and blankets and tools and herbs and spices. She would have been for sure seeing to it that Joseph, who would have had to be on the very, very far side of the cave, couldn't been in attendance for, quote, fear of getting contaminated by all that blood, that this was a women's thing. And so women would have been in the cave, and we Westerners would not have suspected it because we're not Near Easterners, and we don't know how it would have gone. But even if you look at the Westerners, they'd shoo the men out, have them start some hot water, and it would just be women in the covered wagon Western world days of the United States. I suspect that there would have been the midwife and her assistant, which could have been her daughter or her granddaughter, apprenticing with her, bringing additional tools and herbs and supplies. I think the innkeeper's wife would have been there also, attending and managing and seeing to it that the midwife had everything she needed, that Miriam had everything she needed, and the inn owner would have been attending to Joseph over in a section for men, over in a place just for men. I think the innkeeper's cook would have been there, keeping a fire going, keeping hot water, bringing in bread, bringing in broth or soups, and maybe a wineskin, fresh hay and straw. There might have been sheep. We've got songs that I as the sheep with the curly horn, right? we have all kinds of songs that talk about the animals in the cave or in the barn, but they would have been tethered. They weren't going to be walking around making a mess. No, there would have been an area supervised by the innkeeper's wife for the birth of this baby. Miriam herself, Mary, has already dreamed that she's going to have a boy child. A boy child is so important in the culture of Jesus. So very important. And so that's our cast of characters, that we would have the innkeeper's wife, the inn's cook. We would have had the midwife and her apprentice with the necessary tools and herbs and cloths of the day. Certainly cleaned up and as pristine as it could have been, and there would have been no shame. Although the authors of this writing want us to understand that this anointed one is already from the very beginning not going to be a political savior, that the Messiahship he's going to bring is going to be a lot more homespun, close and closer to the bone, and would have been like an extraordinary, ordinary, or the ordinary, extraordinary birth, so that he would be from the very beginning a Messiah, an oiled one, a greasy one, a poured over one, anointed one. He would have been a man for his teachings would have been for the people, because he's born amongst the people. He's not, his royalty is in the consciousness of the everyday man, the everyday woman, the everydayness of God, the accessibility to the presence of God is an extraordinary, ordinary birthright. I love this. In the culture of Miriam and Joseph, dreaming was an important communication device. Chelma, the dream, is also a word that has the connotation of healing. So when Miriam and Joseph had dreamed of this baby, it was healing to them. As I've said, and we'll say again, their country is under siege. We Westerners can get just a hint of under siege because of, well, now there's this thing where over here where I am, are you vaccinated or not vaccinated? Have you had your booster shot or not had your booster shot? Will you put on your mask? Will you wash your hands a lot? And in a particular way, our country with this pandemic that we're in has kind of had us under siege with rules and regulations. And in Jesus's time, Joshua's time, Shoah's time, they too were under siege, that they could practice their spiritual life. And they had to be mindful that they are occupied by a country that has zero tolerance for anyone who would challenge the Caesar, who would challenge Roman rule. They have zero tolerance for this. So they're on the lookout for anybody claiming to be the oiled one, the anointed one, the leader of a people, the ruler of a people. Now, the writers of this beautiful birth story, they have also 3 wise men or 3 kings from the east. These are Near Easterners, so they're further east. And these men are quite literate. We three kings of Orient are. They're very literate and erudite. They were the kind of men who looked at all cultures and then looked at the heavens, the Shmeya, Dwashmeya in the heavens, to see about predicting or noticing interesting notifications from the heavens, from God, of things that would impact the goings on of we humans on the earth. The way the story is recorded and written, there are men who have searched the scriptures, but it ain't any old kind of scriptures. They've searched Jewish scriptures. At that time, I'm kind of Gentile-ish, so it would have been the Hebrew scriptures, or some of us know it as the Old Testament, because that's all that would have existed. And they knew about the Messiah. And then they did astrology and astronomy to see if the heavens were indicating when this, if they could determine when this Messiah, this oiled one, this anointed one might be born. According to the recorded text that the received text that we have, they think it's now in their lives. They think that they search it and they try to get the details of where this Messiah might be born. When they say they have seen his star, there's two ways to understand have seen and followed the star. It's an idiomatic phrase, a poetic phrase. And the star can be, certainly it's about light. This whole season, the return of the light. After a long period of darkness, the return of the light is winter. Winter won't all be dark. By January 30th, it will be daylight at 5:30, 6 o'clock. The sun will not have set. Oh my goodness. And so these astronomers, these astrologers, and deep students of scriptures from all over the world understood by their divination technology that the child, this baby, was to be born, and soon. They could easily, by studying the Jewish scriptures, determine what city he would be in. To see the star, idiomatically, we have seen his star, which means they saw it astrologically. There could have actually been a kind of a star they were following, but they were following the light of the Messiah as the details of what it would be like to have the Messiah. How will we know when we see the Messiah? All those details, these three scholars, these three wise men would have been following that light of their scholarship. And they eventually arrived in the same crowded city of Bethlehem, and they came bearing gifts. And these gifts were said to be expensive. Many people say this is why they thought Joshua and his family were wealthy, because of the gifts that these magicians, the magi, brought with them. This birth story is so tender and sweet. If you've ever had the privilege of two things, being the one giving birth, you know, it's no small thing. It's a little loud. It's a little noisy. It doesn't feel all that good, so there could be moaning. The people in the birthing room with you would seek to console you. Your doulas, your midwives, they would have been the women who would have been administering to you to give you as much comfort as possible, and to see to it that the baby is born and enters this world very, very safely, that the baby gets cleaned up in the right way, in a traditional way. The tradition that he's or she is born into that right way. Those are air quotes, me. Jesus turns out to be Jesus, Joshua, Yeshua, turns out to be completely ready and has a towardness in his natural heart for things spiritual. How could he not? He had dreaming parents, righteous parents who kept the laws of Judaism and of the land. When the baby is born, they would have cleaned him up in a just so way, wiped him down in a just so way. Oh, the cook who had those hot waters ready, they would have had a nice bath for this baby boy. And they would have been thrilled that it was a baby boy, because culturally, they thought boys were the leaders of their culture. And it's not that they would not have been pleased as punch. With a girl, they were also deeply moved by the boy, because the boy was predicted by the malacha, the messenger Gabriel, to both Miriam herself and to her husband, Joseph. Jesus was understood by the wise men, by all those, after everything gets cleaned up and all the blood and all the cloths are taken out of the space, then men can come in, or men are allowed. So these three kings would not have been able to come in until after all the birthing event had completed itself and that the babe and the mom were resting safely. And for Jewish men, there would be no contamination of the blood. So the midwives, the assistants, the innkeeper, the innkeeper's wife, the cook, they would have taken out all those cloths, all that water, and disposed of it in a kosher, prescribed way by their culture. That's just another story unto itself. And I forgot to ask my beloved Rev Wendy how much time I had. So how much time do I have left?
You have 15 minutes if you would like.
Yes, and I won't need it all, but maybe there's questions. So I just want to say this last thing. Woo!
It's wonderful. It's
good. Oh, good. Yeah, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, and perhaps I'll get it invited back in case I can't answer it all right now, because this story, of course, is lasting for hours. Try to imagine riding a horse for 10 days. Woo wee! You would have been, oh my goodness, side saddle. Wow. Some 70 miles someplace. And the last thing I want to add, it was understood that Jesus was beautiful. In the place called our Bible, there are named 5 beautiful women. One of the women that you might be most familiar with, who was named Beautiful, is Sarah, Abraham's wife. She is said to be so beautiful that 2 times bandits try to steal her from Abraham and take her away. She was so amazing to see that she could get stolen. And traditionally, bandits would kill the husband so that she'd be totally free and take her and maybe sell her into slavery, or take her and sell her into a minor ruler of a territory. And this did happen to Sarah. She was beautiful. a kind of beautiful, a spiritual beautiful. Jesus was beautiful. The kind of beauty I'm talking about, this last thing I want to offer you, is that when the midwife, the innkeepers, even Joseph, for sure his mama, the wise men, he carried the beauty that Sarah had, the beauty named in the Bible. This kind of beauty is not kind of beauty where you look at it and it's glamorous and lovely. It is not a fashion magazine cover kind of beauty. It is the beauty of the presence of God all upon you. And when you see the presence of God emanating, radiating from another, you fall in love with them easily. You see the best of you in their eyes, even though you haven't even lived it yet, didn't even think you could live it yet. When you see this face, it's like you see reflected the presence of God that you are in the face of this baby or in the face of these beautiful women. And you want to keep them for yourself unless you're terrified, and then you might want to squelch the beauty. I hope I said that well. That Jesus, when you looked into the manger, you fell in love with the presence of God as your life. You could see it was his life, but the way the radiation worked, the radiance worked, it lit you up. This is already telling of the kind of oiledness, the Messiah that was already born within you, even tonight. If you were to gaze into the sweetness of your own life, you would see there the reflection of the presence of God. This is your destiny. The destiny of this Joshua, this Mr. Jesus, was that he would, as one of our revs says, reveal and reflect the beauty of your life. That is what's seeking to be born. This is why it's a radiant darkness. You can see in the darkness your actual destiny. This is the birth of this little baby who was beautiful from Jump Street, beautiful from day one, beautiful with the presence of God, such that you were warmed by the presence of God. You were changed looking at the baby like the wise men were. We brought our gifts, but the light coming from the baby was the greater gift. Instead of being blinded by the light, you could finally see the light. You could see the light itself. It is said that animals see with light, but human eyes see the light. Whew. That's amazing. And with that, I would love to open this to questions. Thank you. You might be muted.
I am muted.
Oh, okay.
I was so moved that I was just in rapture of the transmission that I've received from you. Thank you, Reverend Joanne. So the mystical meaning of Christ Mass, of the Christ Mass, is the radiant, the reflection of gazing
Mm-hmm.
to the sweetness of the
Yes.
baby.
Yes. The mystical meaning is that every day you are born and you are the sent one. You are the oiled one.
Mm.
You are the oiled one, not just the one person, the only, but one of the oiled ones. It's for you to light up the night so that we can all now, because you're here, because you chose a time like this, we can see in the dark. Not because we can see the radiant dark light. We can see the sun. All the light is available to us now. That's the meaning of this season, that it's the return of the sun. Because after the longest night, every night gets shorter, shorter, shorter until the longest day, to the shortest night. We're on our way to the shortest night.
So what's really fascinating to me, and I remember you were one of the first, I never heard anybody say this before, but you talked about Yeshua was born Jewish and went to sleep and woke up Christian. And I speak to the oil, the anointing that you're speaking of in relationship to the celebration of Hanukkah. So it's all connected.
It's all connected, yes. Because in the culture, he's Jewish. So as soon as he becomes Jewish, he makes total sense to the culture. But if you put him on a Roman toga, you blow dry his hair, feather it back, you give him blue contact lenses, he looks nothing like himself and he doesn't sound like it, right? The oil in the culture and Hanukkah, that the oil lasts long enough, way longer than you thought. That's the truth of us. There's oil within us. There's a wet within us. There's a moistness within us that will never dry out. Jesus is the wick in that oil lamp of his culture, and he's the wick. He sets himself on fire, not a destructive fire, but the same fire that Moses knew that burns without consuming. Woo! Okay, I ain't tried that before. Whoa.
Well, I'm getting lots of comments in the text box.
Okay.
Thanking you for this brilliance and how moved people are. And if there's anyone who would like to ask Reverend Joanne a question, we have a few more minutes. Just place it in the text box and I will ask her. And so one thing that struck me, Reverend Joanne, was when you talked about the 70 miles. And I think about the teaching of Yeshua, which is to forgive 70 times 7, which is, right?
Yes. It's all connected because he had a relationship with the presence that was transmittable, that when you got near it, you thawed out and heated up. And you became lit. You became as lit as he. And you're that difference maker. All of us, we are blessed to be in the teachings we're in, so that we could have Jesus not live across the street, but we could cross the street and go over there and hang with him, just like his disciples did, right? He's not over there. He's over here with us. And he wanted this for us as he did for his own disciples. And I like the part, of course, that few of us would ever think that Jesus is going to have a midwife. He's going to have all these women. He's born in a community of women. And every encounter as a grown man that he has with women is at the edge of okayness for men. He comes to the edge. He's almost illegal. He could have been crucified just for his goodness to women. Could have got him in trouble.
Yes.
Because he could tell they were the image and likeness of God as well. He was not confused.
No.
Wow. And then we became unconfused.
Right.
That's the nature of the light. You could see yourself in him clearly. There's some place that says we see through a mirror darkly and then face to face. But the mirror is the Christ, is the wet, is the anointing, the moisture that keeps the friction down in human relationships and becomes the fuel. Everything becomes the fuel for the light. And that's what we're going to do, right? What's the fuel? Are you going to do the alchemy, which needs heat, the light, to convert fear into love? Because that would be the task. Would you convert fear into fuel, into power, an offering, and then love?
Yeah.
That's our work. And he did do that. And he did it with the heat of passion. He could see us clearly. When he looked at you, Wendy, he said, oh my goodness. Right? There she is, a kind of beauty on the outside, but he also could evoke the inner beauty. Well, he'd have to evoke it. Well, evoking meaning he could already see it.
Yeah.
It was already true.
Yeah. And it makes sense why he was also why he was surrounded by so many women who loved and adored him.
That's right.
Because he brought that love. He
could get the distinction between a rule, a regulation created by humans, and what God would say. He could distinguish that. This is a human-made rule, right? And this is what the presence of God says.
So his 40 days and 40 nights, I have a different perspective of what he was. I know that's a whole nother dialogue. So yes, absolutely. Yes, and yes for, to be honored and receive your teaching and presence again. This has been such a pivotal time where we are, as you spoke about, as we are under siege, and to be reminded
yes.
of the truth teachings of Yeshua,
yes.
and the invitation to really, as you said, gaze into the sweetness. Will you say that again before we close, please? To gaze into the sweetness.
I want you to do what the midwife did. She had to gaze. She looks in the manger and sees a spiritual beauty so profound that when she stands up, again, she is a transformed woman. She saw the sweetness of her own life and didn't know she had it. She thought she was still going to earn it, do something, but she bends over the manger, took up the little blinky blink, and whoa, the sweetness has transformed her life.
Yes. Thank you.
And it's not making the sweetness, it's discovering you're already sweet.
Yes.
Yes.
The revealing.
Yes. The revealing ethically, the revealing ethically, the revelation ethically.
Ethically. And so Yeshua, ethically revealing, and the Ruha.
Yes, would you say the Ruha?
Oh, I said the Ruha, right.
Ruh, yeah, which is the wind, the spirit, the breath.
Yes.
Ruha. Yes.
Reverend Joanne, as you were speaking that beautiful Lord's Prayer in the very beginning, what struck me is that actually it sounds very native. In my ears, I was like, it doesn't sound like Hebrew necessarily. It sounds native. When I
could have brought that. That could have been my Cherokee accent. Thank you for that. I say yes.
Yeah, yes, it was beautiful and gorgeous because it just reminded me of the universality.
Yes.
And how you see what, just naturally, it's just, can we please connect and meet at the heart?
Yes.
So how can people connect with you going forward?
That's a great question. I think that they can reach me through my email. So you could put that in the chat. That's all lowercase, Rev Joanne at agapelive.com.
Okay.
And then I'm trying to get the nerve to do a 30-day broadcast every day on the one Aramaic word for 30, a different Aramaic word for 30 days.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So that way I can notify them.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to put that in the email that goes out.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
With the replay. So that will be, and
okay.
And so I'm grateful to you as always for your
thank you.
Extraordinary gift of time with us today and the wisdom that you've transmitted, and just so grateful for Yeshua. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to reconnect with this wisdom in this time of light.
In this time of light.
This return to light that we are just, I feel like a sponge. And I to spread these teachings in this particular time is so, to me, in terms of what's essential, this is essential. So thank you.
I'm yours. I really am. I'm yours.
Thank you.
And we will dwell together the way Jesus is. They camped with him for about 4 years. We don't know really how long. We're using the scriptures, and they don't do time the same way.
Right.
It's kind of indigenous time.
Yeah.
But let's camp together for the next 4 years.
Yeah. Oh my God. My joy. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Then we shall. I'm a yes.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Mwah. And to all that are here with us live and archived, we wish you all of the joys and the love of this season. May you remember the splendor that resides within you, that you do not need to earn, because it is already encoded into your DNA. You are this magnificent reflection of the One. And I will make sure you have this, and please join us Wednesdays at 11 a.m. And you'll have the email when you receive the email, so you can reach me directly. But until next time, just remember, you are the gift of God. You are here on purpose with purpose. You are a divine, radiant, magnificent expression of the One. And are there any I'm so glad. Reverend Joanne, is there anything you want to close with in your magnificent way of speaking?
I'm going to close like this.
All right.
What is real in me, the world can't take that away. What is real in me, the world can't take that away. Oh, no, no, no. What is real in me, the world can't take that away. The world can't take that away. What's real in you, the world can't take that away. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Ashe.
Yes, Ashe.
Hallelujah. Many blessings. All right. Peace and many blessings, everyone. So much love. And thank you, Reverend Joanne. I love you.
Yes. My joy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.